Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're discussing the limitlessness of God. Join us as we dive into our misconceptions, our own limits, and our tendency to replace God with other things. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're starting a new book series, and as in the past, when we start a book series, we usually take a couple chapters and devote one of our episodes each month to the book. You do not have to be reading the book in order to follow along. We generally just use that as a springboard for our discussion. But if you would like to get this book is called None Like Him by Jen Wilkin, and it's 10 ways God is different from us, and in parentheses, why that's a good thing. So today we are doing the introduction and chapter 1. So if you want to get this book, I think total you'd have, probably less than 20 pages to catch up to where we are. And then next month when we do another chapter, you'll be right on schedule. But as our springboard for today, you do not have to have read the book, as I said before, but Julie's going to go ahead and introduce kind of the theme of the introductory chapter and what we're going to discuss in this part.
Okay, so we're going to discuss the intro and chapter 1 today. This book, I think Marie and I read this book back in 2020 through our church, and I don't know, I loved it then, and I've just kind of been drawn back to it ever since. I wanted to go back, through it after my life has changed drastically, revisit it. So she starts off the introduction, it's called On Becoming a God-Fearing Woman. And she's talking about seeing that fearing God rightly means we have to recognize who he is, a God with no limits, utterly unlike anything or anyone that we know. And that's the beginning of wisdom. And she quotes the verse, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." And she talks about fear from different perspectives, like it's a fear that leads to awe and worship. And so I just thought it would be interesting to start with, maybe what has been our conception of God. Is he someone to be feared, someone looking down to catch you or at a mistake, or is he approachable? I don't know. For me, it's changed throughout my life.
I know in my head that he is approachable through things that I've been taught, but my instinct is fearful and waiting to catch me up. So
I feel like I've gotten to know him long enough through different hills and valleys of my life that I have found him absolutely faithful, and that his word and his presence have everything I need. And then as soon as the next storm comes, I question everything again. Even though I know certain things with my head, my heart longs to wonder. And so that constant reminder of who he is and what his word says about him, I have to have. And so I have a funny saying that I've told a couple people, but I realize more and more that I'm a sheep, and we're called sheep, in the Bible. And so sometimes when I realize how much of a sheep I am, I literally just go, bah. like I'll be thinking and I'll start to get afraid about something, and then I'll think, the Holy Spirit will remind me of who God is and what he's done, and I don't have to worry about that. And so then I just go, bah, bless this mess, Lord, I'm a sheep. So I know it, but I need to know it.
Yeah. And, in the Old Testament, the kind of the focus of who God was, the focus was on his holiness, like how we had to kind of keep our place and keep our distance and not to approach God, irreverently. And you think about the burning bush, Moses had to take his shoes off and he was in the presence of God. But there's this total shift in the New Testament. We're told to pray to God, our Father. We're his daughter. We're an heir with Christ. The language is all about family and adoption and how approachable he is, that we can boldly and confidently approach him as a loving father. So I think her point in this is that we had to view God rightly. We have to see him as both things,
Mm-hmm.
holy, like he is our God who is very near to us, but he's also the God of the universe who has a hallowed name above all others. Like he's both. And
Right.
that's kind of what she's wanting us to see, like not to lose the majesty of God. Because when we do, we tend to replace him with things that are so much less, you know?
Right.
So she asked us that through the reading of the book, she goes, consider these two things. She begs us to consider the majesty of a limitless God and then to stare down the tendency to ask other people or even ourselves to be what only God can be. So that's kind of the backdrop. Like keep thinking about that throughout the discussions.
So that's kind of the intro. And then we move into chapter 1.
The book is going to go through the 10 ways that God is different from us, like 10 characteristics of God that only he possesses. And the first one that we're going to talk about is that God is infinite. So she starts off and says, any discussion of how God is not like us has to begin with the acknowledgement that we are measurable and he is not. And then she also wants us to think, like, with each attribute that we go through, ask, how should the knowledge that God is whatever, infinite, for example, change the way I live? That's another thing to kind of think about. Like, why does that matter?
Mm-hmm.
So this first chapter, she has us looking at how God is infinite. He has no limits. He defies measurement of any kind. He's limitless. And so then all his other attributes, like his power, his love, his mercy, those are limitless. No one can place any aspect of who God is on a scale or against a yardstick. What kind of response does that give when you know that God can't be measured?
Well, my first thing is that being able to measure something gives you a measure of control. So if you can measure something, then maybe you can adjust it, or you can make allowances for it in some areas or make it work differently. But if God can't be measured and we all know that we don't have control, whereas a lot of things in our lives we can measure and we do control to an extent.
Mm-hmm. It both terrifies me and comforts me because on one hand, I mean, the terrifying part of it is we are not sovereign like he is sovereign. Um, we only understand our world in terms of how we measure it, endings, beginnings, seasons, what age we are. I mean, all of it is through that human understanding. And so when I realize that I will never know what to expect, like I want to know what to plan for, expect, prepare for financially. I mean, these very tangible things that we grow up and we're like, you want to be a good citizen and you want to be able to provide for your family and you want to know how long you're going to live and you want to know what it's going to take to live a good life. I mean, everything that we do is determined by, are you prepared? Have you worked for it? Are you making wise decisions? Well, terrifies me when I realize I have no control over that. I'm glad you brought that up, Marie. And I have no idea what to plan for nor expect. So, and then it absolutely comforts me because what a great adventure. I mean, to consider that God has called me his child, that he is good, that he is loving, that he is kind, that he is sovereign, that he has conquered death and all of the fingers of death that touch our lives, which to me, everything that I'm afraid of falls into that category, the fingers of death. And I'm absolutely comforted and amazed and excited because my home is in heaven. But how do we get there? So yes, I'm terrified, I'm excited, and it's a constant vacillating between faith and fear.
Yeah, I said it was mind-blowing, that he's incomprehensible, limitless, but also that is reassuring to me because would I want to worship a God that I could totally explain, totally control, and comprehend? And then and at the same time, the temptation is to know everything. Like I want to know it all. Like God, don't keep me in the dark on this. I need to know.
Right.
And that's usually not how he works. Like he leads you to the next step. And sometimes, you feel like you're in the dark and you don't know where you're going. And, that's just when you have to hold on.
Hold tight.
So, yeah.
Well, we thought about, like, we as humans, we love to measure. So we were going to talk about some examples in our society now and in history of how we do like to measure. It can be personal or societal, but I was thinking about when we're born, right away, they give us an APGAR score, and we are measured our length, our weight. Right away, we get a measurement, and it can be found lacking or it can be something to brag about. It's quite amazing, really, that we start out literally from birth being measured. And then you think about all the ways that children are measured at every doctor's visit and every time they go in and out of school, they're measured mentally and emotionally and physically. And like, I think we become immune to being measured. We don't even really notice it. We just put our hands up and get on the scale and like expect to be measured.
Yeah, we're
Right.
pretty obsessed with it. I hadn't even thought about the babies, but you're right. That's kind of the first thing you ask somebody is like, well, how much do they weigh? How long were they?
Mhm.
Um,
And we put qualities on them. So if it's a boy and they come out with a good, healthy weight and they're long, well, we automatically imbibe them with these like, oh, they're going to be a linebacker, or they're going to be big and strong, or they're going to be good at athletics. And if it's a girl and she's a little on the smaller side, then she's going to be petite and dainty and a gymnast, or, like we know nothing about their personalities. Nothing about any of it, and yet we immediately, just based on their measurements, start to put things on them. And I think that's so totally normal. Like, we're not going to get away from that, but it is kind of funny to be aware of.
Yeah, we're sizing people up, literally.
Yeah. And all the time, if you have ever been measured or if you can think back to seasons that you have been measured, our question is all of life, do I measure up? Like, we want to know.
Yeah.
Or am I within normal limits? Like, we at least want to
Is
be
this
in normal
considered
limits.
normal?
Yeah, the bell curve. Where am I in the bell curve?
Yeah. Yes.
So we want to know if we measure up. We want to know if we're within normal limits, but always it's against other people.
Yeah. I
It
thought
is.
about tracking like all the health trackers,
Yes.
measuring heart rate and calories and steps and like that's a
Sleep.
lot of sleep and the quality of sleep and the length of
Right.
sleep and
That would be too much information for me to have. That would not be good for me. I don't want all that information about myself. I don't
the
want to be
measurement stops there.
Yeah, I don't want to be measured in such detail. I can't go there.
Right. I have jokingly called Apple Watches like ankle bracelets, like your prison ankle bracelet.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't want to be available 24/7. I don't want to know if somebody's texting me sometimes or calling me sometimes or whatever. But Bryce and I were just watching a movie and it showed the sleep tracker. Like this woman
Oh,
wakes up and the sleep thing basically says she had a horrible night. I was like, what a defeating way to start your day.
that's what I mean. Every day would start out depressed if I had to look at my sleep readout.
Yes. Yeah, I already know I didn't sleep good. You don't need to tell me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think some people really use all of that information and it really does drive them to lead healthier lives. They'll change decisions, to get better scores or
Right.
whatever. Like that
Yeah.
competitive, they're
Mhm.
competing with themselves and they want the best version of themselves, but it would really stress me out. And I would just I would probably spiral down. I'd probably do worse each day
Yeah.
with all
For
of
me,
that
more
information.
information does not guarantee more peace at all.
Yes. So
Sometimes
maybe
it's
we're
just too much.
all rebels in that way. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought about budgets, like
Right.
measuring, keeping track of spending. And
Mhm.
for me, like I think it's a way of feeling in control is like knowing what's in the bank is a feeling of security, like,
Right.
and
Mhm.
I have my financial stuff on an app. And so I can look and see if the stock market went up or down, like in
Oh,
real
I
time,
don't wanna know that, Julie. Is that good for your
Yes.
mental health?
Oh, I enjoy watching it,
Do
yeah.
you?
I mean,
Okay.
I don't stress over it because I always
Right.
listen to John and he was like, "Doesn't matter, you just leave it in there, it's okay."
Right. Right.
So,
That's about all
I'm
I know about the stock
yeah,
market
yeah.
too.
Yeah, so I do think that, um, we we do like to measure, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
human nature, it's human nature.
Well,
Mhm.
I'll say, like, we just did an episode on men's mental load, And I will tell you guys, Bryce was surprised to listen to it and hear the topic. I mentioned at the beginning of that episode he would be surprised because I didn't tell him about it, but he enjoyed it. So thank you, ladies. I'm glad we were able to talk about that. But this really can be very different for men. And I know just one thing that Bryce has talked about, is he's trying to budget like for the rest of our lives. He's trying to figure out, how much insurance do we need? What do our investments need to be at? At what age can he reasonably retire? What is the stock market going to do, and economics and things like that? So he knows, well, how much money do we need? What if one of us gets sick? He's trying to measure these things that we have no idea to try to plan for. And so he constantly keeps an eye on these things. And so I'm not surprised, Julie, that you're watching the stock market now. Like,
well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone has to be watching it, so I'm sure you didn't
But I
watch
never
it
did
when John
before.
was there. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He would tell me things and I would be like, I don't care.
I mean,
I'm closing my ears now.
Yeah.
How much insurance do we need? What kind of insurance do we need?
Yeah.
How do we attempt to take measure of God? What limits have you placed or wanted to place on his character or will?
For me, it's about time. Like, I expect him to act on my timeline, and God is out of the concept of time. He's out of the realm of time. He's infinite, eternal, but I want him to act, like, hey, God, do you not see time is running out? Do you not see I need this now? Do you not, I'm placing that limit, like he can't do it any other way.
Yeah.
Or I hold him to options, to only the options that I can see, like, God, it's going to be this or that. And I don't see either one happening. So this can't possibly work out. And then it'll work out in a way I never thought possible, like something I didn't see on the horizon. So I know I limited him to being like a human, being like me with only the capabilities that I have. I tend to want to put those limits on him.
Time was the first thing that I thought of too, is that the timing of things is really where probably most of my disappointment has come in life. That any time my timing is not met for something that I think should happen, that's where I just come face to face with my disappointment. And then that could really lead to some great fear. When seasons end, it can be really disheartening. And, I wonder, like, what is my life going to look like, for instance, when I am an empty nester? I know you guys have walked this road, it's going to be okay. And my head knows it's going to be okay, but my heart is really starting to question, especially as graduation comes closer. And I really wonder, like, God, what are you going to do? Because you haven't really revealed what that will look like for me. And so this ending in this season, it's a limit. When things begin, I wonder, like, well, God, what are you going to do with this? Like, it's not happened when I thought it was supposed to happen. But then, you have things happen like sickness or pain. Those things really change your view of God. I mean, like I said, I know God to be good and loving and kind. And as soon as pain hits my body, I'm like, where are you? Like, what's happening? Why is this happening? I don't understand. And so we just seem to always think that comfort is the end goal. And anytime comfort or happiness is not met, it's really easy to question, well, what are you doing? Are you in control? Like, do you understand? Like, this really hurts. I really wanted answers. And I think I need answers by this date. And he's like, oh, I have everything you need. You're like, but I need answers by this date. Oh, I have everything you need.
Right. That's so true.
And it's just, and he's right. He's absolutely right. He has everything we need.
Yep.
Not
And you learn that in hard times.
Oh,
You really do. Yeah. Another way that I kind of limit God or take measure of him is it can be really hard to fathom his depth of forgiveness, because we remember sin. We remember hurts and disappointments. And, it says our sin is as far as the east is from the west, and he chooses not to remember them and hold them against us. And I think that's just hard to fully comprehend sometimes because we aren't very good at that. So we limit God. We think that he's like us and that he has
Right.
to be remembering those. He just has to. He has to be, maybe wanting to hold that against us. So why do you think this inclination to measure, this obsession with measurement is true of human nature? And you've already said something, Marie, about it, that we measure because we think what we can measure, we think we can control to some degree. She used a really good example from the movie Hoosiers, and I just watched that Easter night. This really small town basketball team makes it to the state tournament, and when they see the gymnasium that they're going to play in, they just crumble in fear because it's huge. And he gives them a tape measure and says, "Okay, measure the free throw line to the basket." And it was like whatever I don't know what the distance is supposed to be, but it was just like their gym. Measure the half court line, measure the height of the basket, and it was reassuring to them that by taking measurement, they felt more in control, like they had this. And I thought that was a really good example. I think the reason that is like when we know the limits or we kind of know what the worst possible thing is, then we think we can stand it. Because we all say like, "Oh, I could live in this apartment for a year. I could eat ramen noodles for 6 months, if your budget required it, or I could stand this job for a year if it got me here." Like if we can kind of measure that limit, it gives us kind of a power to withstand it. And I was also thinking about that movie Count of Monte Cristo because I just watched it. I think that's why prisoners put the little hash marks on the wall. Like
Yeah.
they're counting down the days of their sentence. Like that's a way to take measure of it because it gives you a feeling of comfort, I think, reassurance.
Well, she uses several examples in the first chapter that are very meaningful. I did also love that Hoosiers example. And she also brings up the Garden of Eden, and this coming from the concept that sometimes when God withholds something from us, that we are suspect and we start to want to have maybe the one thing that he has withheld versus the 20 things that he's given us.
Mm-hmm.
And so she uses, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden and how God told Adam he could eat of any fruit of any tree in the garden except one. And that was the first sin, was Adam just could not keep himself from the one thing because he just felt that God was withholding good, that it
Mm-hmm.
became
Mhm.
desirable. And so, something that she wrote in the book, I ended up reading to my husband and son this morning, and they really appreciated it. But it says, even as we enjoy his good gifts, we feel a hyper awareness of the boundaries he has set, and we question their validity. Though he gives us 19 gifts and warns us away from one danger, we suspect that what is withheld is not dangerous, but desirable. And
Mm.
so in his infinite wisdom, we don't see what he sees. And so to be able to be reminded to trust him, that if something is withheld, to trust him. It
Mm-hmm.
might be a not right now, not yet, or no.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
it might even be something that's not withheld from other people.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And that's hard. I think that's almost harder
Yeah.
than if it was just a blanket withholding.
Mm.
But
Right.
if you see that some people get it and some people don't, and they seem to be okay, nothing negative's happening. So you think, why
Right.
can't I have that too then?
Mhm. I think there's a C.S. Lewis quote that nothing that is withheld is necessary and nothing that is given is unnecessary or something like that. I always loved that quote because that's just a good reminder. Like I've got what I need, what he
Right.
thinks I need. Yeah.
Right.
Another thing she said in this section was or she said we choose our human yardsticks with care. In other words, like we love to measure and we tend to size up other people as well. Like we size up
Right.
ourselves, we size up God, and we size up other people.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Mhm.
said, but we choose our human yardsticks with care. And I think we've talked about this in other podcasts too, that we usually measure ourselves against other people, but usually in a way that assures us that we're going to come out favorably. You know,
Right.
like, am I getting enough steps? Well, I got more than so and so, or I eat better than so and so, or
Mm-hmm.
it's all relative, and we usually try to look good
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
make ourselves look good to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. There's a constant jockeying in society. If you go into any new social situation, immediately you can sense the sizing up types of questions that are asked. And I ask them too, because they are our way of small talk. But they can also feel maybe not good if you're not measuring up well within the questions. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I think of those Christmas parties, Julie, where you used to hate to go because then everyone asks you what you did.
Uh-huh.
So it's like I don't
Oh,
even want to
right.
go to the party.
What fabulous job do you have, Julie?
Yeah, where do your kids go to school? Oh, they're at home.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. Feeling thirsty. Okay, I'll talk later.
The people that are measuring well, then their conversation just gets longer and more people join the circle. But if you say, "Oh, they're homeschooled," then like people peter away and go talk to someone else. That's how you kind of described it.
Well, and I wonder if you feel like you're measuring well, does that kind of embolden you to ask all those questions all the time? You know what I mean? Because you're really happy with your answers, so
True.
you're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, I like Gretchen Rubin has said before that there are things to say instead of like, "What do you do?" Like, "What's been keeping you busy lately?" Or
Yeah.
like just something that's more general that anybody could answer. And I think that those are good questions. They're not necessarily a measurement. They're really more of a let me get to know you.
Yeah, less
Right.
yardsticky.
Mhm.
Right. I'll
Yeah,
say,
that's a
like,
good idea.
this really came into play recently in our household. We have a senior. He graduates next month. I haven't mentioned that 100 times already, so I'm gonna keep mentioning it because it's on my mind constantly. But it really came to a head the week before his spring break because he had a lot of interviews. He was finding out about certain scholarships. He had things he was competing for, and they all came to a head in 1 week.
Mm,
And so in this 1 week, he had some high highs and some low lows because he got some things, he didn't get other things, he knows people that got other things, and you have the same conversation with your kids. "Oh, I'm surprised they got that. Oh, I can't believe they got that. Oh, why didn't I get that? I've done," and it really is it's a harsh thing to be measured so critically amongst your peers and to
Mhm.
compete for these same things, and so it couldn't have been better timing that we literally went to the beach and got some, rest and relaxation and literally perspective
mhm,
because things really got put in perspective to just get away from the competition for a minute. Like, life is going to be great for all of these kids. These kids are all amazing, but only so many get the prize. And, anyone that's been in that situation can understand. And so he is typically not affected by this, but that week he was. And so it's hard. It's hard to compete with peers in any stage of life because you're going to either find yourself winning or losing. And it's
mhm,
like there's no other option, but there is the other option. And so I think that's what we're talking about.
mhm,
Yeah.
Maybe you're winning and maybe you're losing, and maybe both of those are exactly what you need to be doing.
Or you're growing, you're changing, you're being transformed. You're just maybe not where you are gonna be yet. Yeah.
Right.
mhm. Well, while God has no limits, we definitely do. So, what God given limits do you rebel against the most?
I think for me, it's the not knowing all things. Like, my desire to kind of throw off that limit, I think is revealed when I assume that I know other people's motives, I know their intentions.
Mm,
Because I think, well, because I know, like I know everything. That's I
Mhm.
don't say that, but that's how I'm acting. If you
mhm,
think you know people's motives and intentions, then you believe you know things you don't know.
mhm,
And knowledge is just I love learning, I love studying, desiring information. I mean, I think that's what makes the internet so appealing. But for me, not all knowledge brings more peace. That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess different types of knowledge affect different people
Right.
differently, but like that tension you talked about, I sure would like to know everything. I sure would like to know my future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like 20 years ago, would I want to know that John was going to die of cancer? No. Like we
Mm-hmm.
want to know and then we don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Right.
that tension we live in. So that's what I tend to rebel against is wanting to know and thinking I know.
What do you rebel against, Mindy?
Wow. Just the letting go of control. Um, Again, that what to expect. I want to know what to plan for. I want to know when things are going to happen. Like I want to know, but then I also don't want to know because it's scary. Because if
Mhm.
someone were to tell me, these wonderful things are going to happen or these very tragic things are going to happen, I
Mm.
just I don't know. I guess the older I get, the more I realize how perishable even our bodies are. I think with my recent injury, it just became apparent to me that we're wasting away. These bodies weren't meant to last forever. Pain entered my life and it never had before. And because of that, doctor's appointments put me in contact with a lot of other people that live daily with pain. And I realized how much of the population lives with pain. And it's hard to comprehend that people live with pain because that seems like an oxymoron in my mind. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm still grappling with, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. It's like I can't see past the veil. Sometimes I really feel like that. Like I wanna look past the veil. I wanna look past this earth and all of the hardship, and I wanna see Jesus in heaven, and I wanna see my future home. And and at the same time, like there's work to be done here. Like in his sovereignty, I'm here. And so then what does he have for me today? Because sometimes it's really scary and sometimes it feels very mundane, very Ecclesiastes-ish. It feels meaningless.
Yeah.
Mhm. We've talked before about how when you're a mom, you kind of get used to being the cruise director and like being in charge and the people doing what you want them to do. And then as they get older, they do less and less the way you thought it might be. And I'm not even saying that I always know what they should be doing, but I say a limit is just that I can't fix everything for my kids. I
Mhm.
can't, make this one's relationship over here better. I can't make this life choice work out differently over here. I can't spin this plate so that now we've got that taken care of. Like a lot of the things at this point are like just listening and trying to support, but really just kind of taking a back seat and letting life play out. And that's not something that you start out in your mom journey doing. When you have a baby, you're pretty much in control when they eat,
We're
when they sleep.
somewhat sovereign over
Yes. I mean, every
some
influence,
details.
every interaction, what they're going to wear, like pretty much. And yeah, it loosens up little by little, but you still have a lot of control, a lot of
Influence.
yeah, a lot
Influence.
of
Yeah.
influence. You still decide where everybody lives, where they're going to school, you still decide a lot, but we come up against those limits as our kids get older and older, and that is a limit. I don't know if I rebel against it. I just maybe I'm more aware of that is a limit of mine and I don't necessarily like it. And it's not easy to say, all right, well, this is a limit for me. So, God, I'm just going to completely trust you with this situation. I'm sure it'll just work out fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's a constant, like I talked about comfort and happiness, like that's the goal. So often with ourselves and as moms, we were controlling these environments for our children to keep them comfortable and happy so they'd stop
Mhm.
crying, first of all.
Right.
Like maybe so they stopped fighting as they got a little older,
True.
and it's just like more and more you take, a finger off of their lives at a time. And then to get to where they're these young adults and we know the hardships and the joys we've walked through in our lives, and they're gonna have those.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sobering to think, like, it's a hands off situation for us. Like, we're not trying to give them comfy, happy lives. We're trying to then
Mhm.
point them to God, who is infinite. But it is very humbling, to become that prayer warrior for your child, just more and more and more.
Mhm.
Allowing I'll say allowing, we have no control anyway, but allowing whatever God has for them and that
Mhm.
He's still good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is like living like this with open
Yeah,
hands instead of
yeah,
closed
Mhm.
fist hanging on to what we think is control.
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to another section, which was reflect or rival. Julie, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, I thought this was kind of the crux or the turning point of the chapter. We spent a lot of time talking about like how we as humans take measure and the comfort that gives us and how we fight it. But I mean, ever since creation, as humans, we were created to bear the image of God, but instead we aspire to become like God. Like we were designed to reflect his glory, like his perfect limitlessness, but instead we choose to rival it. And Mindy, you've already mentioned in the garden with Eve, she believed God was withholding something that she either needed or that was something good for her, which basically means she didn't trust God with the limits that he set for her. That's basically what it comes down to. Is like God has set these boundaries, these limits, but I don't trust you. Like I
Mhm.
want something that's beyond my limitations.
Mhm.
And gosh, I just thought how this is kind of key to understanding like the chaos that's in the world right now. I mean, when we look at what's happening, we say, how did we ever get here with all this chaos? But, whenever we push God out or kind of make God irrelevant, we ultimately are setting ourselves up to kind of be our own God, like deciding what limits, what purposes we're going to respect. And then those God given limitations kind of become oppressive and problematic, like something to be thrown off, so to speak.
Mhm.
Like we need to get rid of these. This is problematic. Instead of accepting those limitations as God given and for some good purpose, we try to throw them off, overcome them. Like these are problems. And I thought
Right,
that was really eye opening to think about, I mean, there's obviously the atheist in the world that has totally thrown off God, but I think even as a Christian, we can make God irrelevant, like not letting him speak into every aspect of our life, not making him relevant is a way of dismissing him and being our own God.
right.
Mhm.
Well, I felt like she described this pretty beautifully in the book, and if I could just read a couple of sentences, I think it really helped me understand what she was saying here.
Mhm.
But she says, "Our limits teach us the fear of the Lord. They are reminders that keep us from falsely believing that we can be like God. When I reach the limit of my strength, I worship the one whose strength never flags. When I reach the limit of my reason, I worship the one whose reason is beyond searching out." And so it's understanding our own limitations that allow us to be free to worship God in his limitless.
Mm,
But when we feel like we're, rocking right along, we've got everything under control, it's easy to not want to trust someone else with the reins.
right. Right. I think I'm learning more and more that my limits are what remind me that that I need God. That drives me to a dependence on him. And I'm not enough, contrary to popular psychology. you know,
Right.
you hear it a lot, like you're enough. You're like, no, I know I'm not enough. And when I reach the limits of my own wisdom, my own strength, my own understanding, then I mean, all I have left is to lean on him. And hopefully what I'm learning is to not wait till I'm at the absolute end of myself to
Right.
depend on him, that I'm learning to do that more and more. These limits are by design, and so that has to be for my good. But we definitely show an impatience with the notion that we have limits, like we want to push them off.
Mhm. Well, and not only do we have limits, but other people have limits. And she kind of talks about why honeymoons never last. And we have all experienced this, like the honeymoon phase of anything, of a job, a relationship, a new home, like anything. We've all experienced those. Like nothing, no one, and nothing is perfect or can measure up in the way that we ultimately want it to. And I think that this was a good reminder for me because I think a lot of times when we're disappointed in the honeymoon phase, we think, well, there must be something wrong with that thing or that person or my decision, when really it's probably just the natural state of a fallen world and not that there was something wrong.
Well, I think her
Yeah.
point was when the honeymoon's over, it's because you realize they're human. Like
Mhm.
somehow you put them on this pedestal of they're going to fulfill all my needs. They're going to fulfill me perfectly in a way that they were never meant to be. Like it's really unfair to place that on somebody. And I know we do that to other people, probably our spouses. I thought about close friends, maybe even parents.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
and if you think about it in reverse, like if anybody expects that of me, we feel totally incapable.
Mhm.
But we
Right.
expect that of other people. We want them to have those attributes that only God has.
Mhm. Yeah, I also think this in relation to our adult kids. Like, I think you can get to friendship with your adult kid when you can both accept the flaws in each other and not be expecting either one of you to be on a pedestal
Right.
because I wasn't a perfect parent, and neither has anyone else been a perfect parent. And that's a really hard thing for anyone to live up to. Like, none of us can be a perfect spouse. None of us can be a perfect parent. We can't be a perfect son or daughter. Like, we just can't be perfect. And I think a lot of times that desire either for someone to see you as perfect or for you to see someone else as perfect actually just destroys relationships.
It does.
Yeah, because you're going to be disappointed at some point.
Right. I mean, I remember, those monumental stages of realizing that other people were human that I had on pedestals, and it wasn't their fault, it was my fault for putting them there. But when I
Hmm.
was younger, when I first realized, like, my mom was human, it really kind of rocked my world. I just thought she was absolutely perfect in every way, and, I mean, she is amazing, but she's not perfect.
Hmm.
And then I remember thinking, Bryce, like, oh my gosh, he's everything and he's amazing, but he's not perfect. He gets tired, he gets grumpy, he needs food. Like there are things that he is very much human. And then
Mhm.
I remember like when I had my first child, I thought, oh wow, this is my dream. I'm so excited to become a mom. And man, she was rough. That girl, she cried all the time. I could not make her happy, like, for a year. And I wondered, like, why I didn't feel right. I just didn't feel joyful or happy, and it was like, "'Cause I have postpartum depression." But then I also remember feeling like I could really keep things under control. And then that 3rd kid came, and then that 4th kid came, and I was like, "I can't do it."
Mhm.
I'm failing. I can't be the mom I had hoped I would be. Like, I can't put on a good face. Like, it's not possible anymore. And so anytime I've come to the end of not only myself, but other people, it's really, really been a beautiful transition to love other people the way God wants me to love them, to have compassion, to have forgiveness for myself, forgiveness for others. The beautiful characteristics that he's grown anytime he's righted my sight back to him has been for my good and for others' good. It's allowed me to love them better.
Mhm.
I remember learning this in a really kind of eye-opening way when I had first joined this community. It was a homeschool group, and I was asked to be kind of in a leadership position, and we took a trip as this community. And I mean, it was like I think I even said the words, "This might be heaven on earth." I think I said those words. Like, the community was just loving, kind. It was like you were in a family with all these people that were friends, and then your kids were all friends, and I mean, it was just you couldn't find a flaw with it. On the way home from that trip, we got a phone call from somebody who hadn't gone on the trip, and there were some hurt feelings over something. That whole group fell apart. I mean, it turned into like a nightmare year of hurt
Mm.
feelings, disappointments. And that was such a lesson for me. Like, I will never put a group up like that again as like that they were infallible and perfect. It was such a lesson, like not that I expect the worst of a group or a community or whatever, but I had just really put them way too high.
Mm. Mhm.
And just
Right.
I just couldn't see how that could ever come to an end in any bad way, like it was just all
Right.
going to be good. And
Right.
I mean it was quick.
Didn't last very long, Julie.
Yeah, it's
One
like,
trip.
oh wait, all these people are human. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Mhm.
She wraps it up kind of quickly, just saying that the thing to keep in mind and to kind of remedy this is we need to learn to because God is a God of measurement. We didn't even really talk about that. He does take measure of a lot of things, but we have to count and measure as He counts. And she ended with a lot of scriptures like that God does not count our sin against us. That's in Romans. In Philippians, she said, do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. There's a lot of counting language in the Bible. Philippians 3:7 and 8 says, but whatever I gain, I count as loss for the sake of Christ. I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus. So just to count and measure people the way God would measure and count people is the way to combat this, I guess. Um, the healthy way to
Sure.
live in the world with fallen people and ourselves.
Yeah. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know if you pick up the book. We'd love to know if you maybe have already read this book. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
This week, I am a fan of the What If It's Wonderful book again, but in the sense of just encouraging listeners that if they're in a season of both joy or pain or transition or whatever it is, to pick a book and maybe go through it with a group of friends.
Hmm.
It was really scary for me to reach out to people and say, hey, do you want to do this book with me? I'm opening up my house on Tuesday night. And I've got some immediate yeses and some, oh, I can't do it. And the group that ended up together going through the What If It's Wonderful book was truly amazing. And I just see how God used that in each of our lives. We still have a group chat, even though we finished the book. We still have like a group chat and text that we keep up with one another. And we're still getting together just to like go to
Hmm.
random dinners and things like that. But seeing some of the fruit that God is bringing out of that season of just, I would say, just being obedient and inviting
Mm-hmm.
was truly, truly wonderful. And so it was the What If It's Wonderful book for us. But I mean, it could be this book for you. There's so many others, but I'm just very thankful to have kind of said yes to God, faced my fear, invited people,
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
gone through that with them because I mean, it's still I'm seeing things come to light that God has done in and through the women of the group that I just could have never imagined. And so it still continues. And it's really just amazing what a yes can do in your life.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
That's good. And I'll put a link
Yeah.
to that book in our show notes. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of two recipes. We had an awesome Easter menu, and it was because of this recipe that I found for ham. Because we have ham a lot because it's tradition, but I don't love it, and I don't like to go to Honey Bake and pay $80 for something that we just kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this recipe for shredded ham. So it's like you'd cook a roast or barbecue and then shred it. You did this with ham. So I put it in the crock pot. You cover it in like Dijon mustard just as a way to like get all the spices to stick to it. You don't
Ooh,
really
yum.
taste it. And then I used a smoky barbecue rub, and then I think there was some brown sugar butter and pineapple juice in there. And I cooked it about 7 or 8 hours, and it just, I took a fork in there and just shredded it. And we ate it on rolls. my kids said, Mom, this is the only way you should cook ham anymore because it was moist, it wasn't dry, it wasn't cold.
Mm-hmm.
It was warm. So we did have quite a bit left over. So this week I made a ham soup with like a white bean and ham soup. And it was delicious. I mean, it was one of my favorite soups. And it was super easy. Like you just chopped carrot and onion and celery and put the ham in and some broth. I used bone broth. So it was really pretty high protein. Canned white beans. I wasn't going to soak any beans. I don't do that. It was very easy. So I'll include both those recipes for the ham and for the soup.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. That's funny. I've made a ham in a crock pot before, and it is a different kind of taste. It is a little bit easier way to do it if you don't feel like doing it in the oven. And it's so funny because if I have leftover ham, I always make ham and bean soup.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of, that's the only time I make ham and bean soup is if I have real ham left over. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, and this ham you cook so long, it really does. Because I've cooked a ham in a crock pot, but, sliced it. You have to really cook this so it's shreddable.
Okay.
And I pulled the fat out, and then you pull the broth off and put it back on, but I let it get cold and pulled all the fat off the top, and then put it back in. So, so it's very moist.
Yeah, that sounds really good. All right, this week I'm a fan of ferns. It's finally looking like you can buy your ferns in Middle Tennessee. And I don't see anything really below 50 coming up, and by then we'll be into May. So I thought, well, I'm going to go to Lowe's and get some flowers this morning anyways. And they had ferns, nice, big, beautiful ferns, 2 for $20. And I just think that is the biggest bang for your buck. Now, in my old house, I don't know if my front porch, because it didn't have an awning or anything that got just beat on by the sun, I don't know that ferns would have survived. But right now I have a covered porch, and the ferns survive from now until they just get frosted over,
Right.
I literally have to throw them away, and they're still not dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're such a bang for your buck. They look pretty the whole summer. And, I don't know where else you can spend $10 on a plant. They're so easy too. It's not like flowers where maybe they stopped blooming and some of them died. Like they literally just live with water. All you have to do is water them.
And I'm assuming these are the Kimberly ferns because they're the sun loving. They're the ones that can survive the heat in the summer.
I'm actually not sure what they
Probably
are.
Probably is. Yeah. Not the Boston ferns.
I actually think these might have been Boston ferns, but I think that's what I always get. But like I said, they're under a covered porch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that if you want, because I do see some people with them out in bright sun.
Yeah, because I planted mine this week and it's on the patio in full sun and it survives.
So
the Kimberly
maybe you need a Kimberly fern. Oh, maybe those don't go for $10 then. They may not. I'm not sure.
No. I think I paid $14.
Oh, it was still not a lot.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Even if you have to pay full price, it's still worth it. And I also saw Costco had really big ferns a couple weeks ago. It was just a little bit too early. I thought I don't have to bring them in the garage if it's going to get cold. I want to put them out there once and be done. So anyways, it's fern season and I'm a fan.
Yep.
We're all fans of ferns.
Yep.
All right. I enjoyed this discussion with you, Julie and Mindy, and look forward to continuing it next month.
All right.
Yes. Thank y'all. Thank you, Julie, for picking out the book.
Yeah. I'm glad y'all are liking it.
All right. Well, we'll talk with you next week.
All right.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.